In this video, it's the end of term review for the Fiat 500 electric supplied by Onto. This video is not sponsored by Onto, but they have provided this car. We've been driving around in it for the past month and now getting on for over 1100 miles we've done in this electric car, which instantly goes to show that people who say that these are only for pottering around locally, utter rubbish. We've been to Swansea, we've been across to Leicestershire. I've put quite a few long distance miles on this car, and I've actually enjoyed it. Now, does that mean I'm going to rush out and buy an electric car? It does not, because cost is still the main barrier, and I can't be dropping that amount of money on a car. You know what my typical budget is, but it has to be said, if I was going to go sort of brand new car, or even, you know, year or two, it would be electric. So let's explore why that is. So one of the main reasons for loving this car is the driving experience. It is simplicity itself. It could not be more simple, especially when you've got it like I have almost all the time in one pedal mode. So you're just having to do so little. Excuse me, it gets a little bumpy down here, which does expose some of the limitations of this car. The suspension is not the best. Let's face it, even those of us who love driving something with a, you know, a revving engine, superb handling, those cars often are not the ones you want to be doing relaxing miles in. I love my Citroen 2CV very much, but when it comes to eating up miles effortlessly, this absolutely trumps it. Now, the 2CV obviously wins for overall driving dynamics just because you feel so much of the road, but all that feeling can get tiring. So there are positives and negatives. I'm going to go up here. It's a 20 limit, so we've got to potter along gently. But yeah, I adjusted so quickly to this one pedal mode. It is quite jerky when you first try it, because you're not used to such aggressive lift-off engine braking, effectively, is what it feels like in a normal car, unless you really slam it down the gears. And modern cars don't seem to have much in the way of engine braking anyway. So it has taken a bit of getting used to try and smooth it out, but now I'm there, I just love it. Because, you know, we're driving along like this. If I lift off, no one behind me, no feet, and we've come to a stop. It's even holding the brakes on for me. You ping the electric handbrake on and it turns the brake lights off, because otherwise it will sort of operate the brake lights for you. So as a fundamental package, I really like the little Fiat. I think the biggest problem with little Fiat is it is quite expensive for an electric car. This one has an on-the-road price of around £31,000, I believe, which is an awful lot of money, especially when you consider the MG4, which I think starts at 26,000 and is a much larger, much more practical car with a greater range. In terms of range, I actually charged this to 100% yesterday for the first time. We found a Type 2 charger. It's a slower charger, but quicker than 13 amp plug. And charged up to 100%, it claimed the range was 161 miles, which is 20 more than Onto say. I will say Onto's range prediction is very realistic, because it seems to be based on the fact you will never run it to zero, because why would you? You'd be stuck somewhere with a flat battery. Hold on, this is a 60 limit. Accelerate! Yeah, that's another thing I like, torque. Abundant torque, and it's always there. This isn't stupidly quick, it's not like a Tesla, but it's still enough that when the Hubnuts came in this car for the first time, they were just like, whoa. I mean, I know I drive old heaps, but you know, Betty, my Ford Fairmont, can do the 0 to 60 dash in around the same sort of time, maybe slightly less time, sorry, slightly more time. But yeah, this car really does get down the road nicely. I am annoyed that, again, I'm doing it here. Have to turn the lane control off every single time you start the car. I don't like lane control descent, especially around here in Wales. It's just natural. Sometimes you drift a bit close to the centre line. That's just how things are in the countryside. Roads are often fairly narrow. And having the car trying to interject, whether it shakes the wheel or even tries to steer you, I just don't agree with. I think that should be something you can turn off permanently. I don't consider that really an active safety feature. The emergency collision avoidance, I get that. That is a sensible thing. But the amount of times that has pinged up a warning to say it doesn't work, because it's based on the camera in this unit here, a unit which incidentally blocks a lot of your vision to the left. And if that mists up, the camera can't see, it refuses to activate the emergency braking. That camera also allegedly tells you the speed limit, and it gets that wrong, I would say probably 30–40% of the time. If it sees a side street with a speed limit sign, it'll pick that up, and also occasionally just picks up random things. So those of us who are dreaming of autonomous cars where computers do all the driving, I fear we've got a long way to go. Because I've had the lane departure pick up something that isn't a road marking and try and control the car. And if we can't even get it to read speed limits correctly, how on earth are we expecting it to drive an actual car? So no, I think those days are a long way from us. But yeah, like I say, it's a bit of a mixed bag. Oh, see? That's the collision avoidance kicking off. That's the first time I've had that happen. That was because the car in front of me was turning left, and I, perhaps wrongly, assumed it was turning out of my path. There was no danger there. I wasn't going to hit it. I didn't even get close to hitting it, but the car has gone nuts. And that's one of the things I dislike about this technology. It doesn't have the same brain as a human. It can't predict anything. It can only react to what it sees there in the moment. And that is a pain. I was going to say this is very unobtrusive for that sort of safety gear, but there we go, that just kicked off. So what do I know? But otherwise, I mean, just driving this car around, it's actually really comfortable, really nice seating position, got somewhere to rest what would be the clutch foot in a normal car. So I've driven this car long distance, and as you can hear, it's peaceful, it's relaxing, and you find your driving style changes. It's not that I'm driving more slowly, but I would say I'm accelerating more gently, and so trying to maintain momentum. Similar technology I apply in the 2CV, I guess, where you try to only slow down as much as you need to. And you know, it's a really nice driving car, so I feel the benefit of that. In terms of charging, that is still the biggest problem with these cars by a country mile. We're very fortunate. In the last days of this hire, the local caravan park, Key West Holiday Park, has installed 2 Rolex chargers on the Vend Electric network, and that's 20p per kilowatt hour. It's quite cheap. It's only a type 2 connection. I think it's 11 kilowatts, so it's not like rapid charging. It's what's known as fast charging. I left the car plugged in for 5 hours, and it went up from 29% to 100% in that time. So if you just want to visit one and charge it quickly and be on your way, no good. But that charge, you know, like 70% of battery, costs £6. But of course, with the Onto package, all the charging is meant to be included. But I would say that only works if they're supported chargers, and that can vary from time to time, which is why I'm not going to name names. That can change, and that isn't always practical. So there's been a few times in that 1100 miles where we've had to pay for a charge because either the free charger was blocked, or I just felt it was beneficial to my journey to use a different charger. So I think we ended up spending probably around 30 or 40 pounds in total on other chargers. So I can see that if you've paid for fully inclusive charging, that's going to be annoying. And of course, if you've got a home charger or an ability to home charge, then having your charging included doesn't work for you there either. Really, I think the Onto package is aimed at people who don't have a home charging option, and we're thinking electric cars aren't for them. Obviously, the biggest limitation for us is there aren't many chargers at all. That's just geography. We live in rural Wales, a very rural part of Wales. There is not a lot here, and that includes rapid chargers. If we go down to Cardigan, down that direction, I don't think there are any rapid chargers at all. Aberystwyth now has some. A few years ago it had none. So yeah, we are limited here by geography. But to be honest, I think most people who would be interested in an Onto package wouldn't be living where we do. But I'm very glad they gave us the opportunity. And why wouldn't you take the opportunity? We've really enjoyed this. The whole family has enjoyed this car. Even though on one trip to Swansea, we ended up spending an hour at a rapid charger in the evening. because I'd run it a bit low to make sure we got to Swansea, and then on the way back we had to charge for a full hour. But yeah, everyone was fine with it, and that's the thing. I think you need that mindset of, I like electric for what it is, and I accept there will be limitations, and I fully accept that isn't for everyone. You consider it madness to sit waiting for charge for an hour on a journey. I can see that. I'm not immune to it, but you know, we committed 100% to this electric lifestyle, so we considered that fine, acceptable. And I think that's the good thing about this Onto package. It gives you a chance to try an electric car for a few months, and I think that will really give you a good feel for whether this is something you actually want to do or not. Interestingly, I must mention this thing. It gets quite a lot of comments. That is a dash cam fitted by Onto. It is nothing to do with me. So I just used the camera I'm talking to you on now. But yeah, it's been really enjoyable. Really liked it. We did see the range did suffer greatly when the temperature dropped a lot, but it's currently 8 degrees out, and that has far less impact on the range than when it was dropping below 5 degrees and into the minus figures. That's what really harmed the electric range, and that's not because you're using the heater. It's primarily because it's having to heat the battery pack, I think, to keep the battery pack warm, to make the battery chemistry work. But obviously I don't think it's heating the battery pack when you're not using it, so that must still be an issue. I mean, I've had issues with my phone and my laptop, especially when we've been camping, getting too cold overnight, and the battery just doesn't really like it at all, and the duration of battery life just plummets. But yeah, I'm loving this as much as when I drove the Nissan Leaf for the first time 9 years ago. There's just something so nice about the electric experience, the beauty of regen. So rather than using the physical brakes, you're recharging the battery, and even though it's fairly inconsequential amounts, really, it's not very much at any given time. You know, it probably covers you for a fair bit of heater use, that sort of thing. I don't believe it makes a massive impact to range, but it's still better than just making waste heat in the wheel wells. I will say the downside, we experienced this. We're driving the car on a very cold and frosty day, so there was lots of salt on the roads, and then we left the car parked up for 3 days, and the handbrake seized on. Because it's an electronic handbrake, I don't think you can park the car and leave the handbrake off. I believe the park position on the transmission has a locking pull like an automatic transmission. So in theory you could leave it with the handbrake off. I'm just not sure how you do it, because it's an electronic handbrake. The computer always wants to put it on. And then yeah, I did have a bit of a game getting the car free enough to actually release the handbrake, but I did manage it. Just cycling forward and backwards a bit, it did ping off. But then the brakes sounded really crusty, and I know my dad's had this in his MGs, where if he doesn't use it for a few days, the brakes get crusty, and because of the regen, it's really hard to work the brakes to clear that rust scale off again. So that is a bit of a downside. So there we have it. That is the end of our time with the Onto Fiat 500 electric, and it's been so enjoyable. Just like 9 years ago, I still get a buzz from driving electric cars. That may seem a strange thing for a petrol head to say, but it's true. Even though I love petrol engine cars, there is still a time where I just want the waft, and it's not often you get so much waft in such a small package. And yeah, I really like that. So thank you very much for watching. Don't forget you can head to the Hubnut store. We will be closed and not processing orders between Christmas and New Year, but otherwise I shall see you in a future video. Farewell.